What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and today we're getting into my December 12th edition of the NCAA Tournament Bracketology. Let's dive into this here. Starting out with this bracket watch. The top overall seed does remain Arizona, right? They're still undefeated throughout this first month of the season. First team out, we do have the Oregon Ducks dropping, and then the last team in, the Butler Bulldogs. On the bubble here, the last four byes, we have Mississippi State. Utah's in this tier. They just beat my BYU Cougars. I really was frustrated by that, but Utah's been a good team. You got to give them credit where credit's due. They are a decent team there. And then Providence and South Carolina also been a surprise. Last for him, we do have New Mexico, Cincinnati picking up their first loss this year. And then Washington, who beat Gonzaga. They're now in this tier. In the last four in. And then Butler. The first four out, we do have Oregon, Indiana State. Love that team from last year. They were a good team. They're coming out of nowhere. So interesting. They're in the same conference as Drake and Bradley. So that's wild. Then UCLA is officially out. They lost to Villanova last night, I believe. And then we have Nevada. And then the next four out, we have Washington State, USC, TCU, and Virginia Tech. USC is officially dropping out as well, which is why they were a 4 seed coming into the year. All right, let's look at this full bracket here. Washington going to be new to the field there. Butler's going to be dropping down to the play-in. Norfolk State's going to be new to the field as a 16 seed. New Mexico, new to the field as an 11. And then Cincinnati dropping down to an 11. In the West region, Arizona, obviously the top overall seed there. Lipscomb going to be dropping down to a 16. We do have Florida new to the field as a 9. Auburn going to be jumping up to a 5. Grand Canyon going to be jumping up to the 12. We do have Gonzaga dropping down to the 3, and then Vermont dropping down to the 14. And then down here we have Memphis dropping down to the 7, Mississippi State dropping down to the 10, Creighton dropping down to a 2. In the Midwest region, we do have Purdue as the top seed. Villanova going to be jumping up to an 8 seed. Iowa State dropping down to a 9. Virginia jumping up to the 5. Oklahoma jumping up to the 4. Memphis going to be jumping up to the 6. Dayton jumping up to the 11. Hofstra new to the field as a 14 seed. Texas A&M going to be dropping down to a 7 seed. Utah going to be dropping down to a 10. And then Portland State dropping down to a 15. In the South region, Kansas is the top seed there. Colorado going to be jumping up to the 8th seed. Ole Miss going to be new to the field as a 9. Alabama dropping down to a 5. We do have South Carolina new to the field as a 10. And then Longwood jumping up to a 15. In the East region, UConn's now a number 1 seed there. Miami is going to be dropping down to an 8. Kansas State jumping up to the 9 seed. Princeton going to be dropping down to a 12. Florida Atlantic dropping down to a 4 seed. James Madison going to be jumping up to the 11. Clemson jumping up to the 3. Colgate jumping up to the 14 seed. San Diego State dropping down to a 7. And then Youngstown State new to the field as a 15. All right, so let's get into this bracket here. Let's start out here with the first 4 games. We do have Washington and Butler. I'm going to go with the Huskies here. Good Butler team, don't get me wrong. Washington start out the year very solid, so give me them. Norfolk State versus Marios. Forgot who I picked in that one. Yeah, I'm going to pick Norfolk State. That also is one word there, so not to get that confused. And then Cincinnati, I do think beats Merrimack. New Mexico, and then Merrimack beats Prairie View. All right, so for a spot in the round of 32, Arizona versus Lipscomb, I am going to go with Zona in that game. Texas, I do think, will hold off Florida. Auburn versus Grand Canyon, interesting game. I'm feeling upset. Let's go with the 12/5 here to start out. Grand Canyon, solid program down there in Arizona. So we have 2 Arizona teams moving on. You know, you look at Grand Canyon. That's a good team. They made the March Madness the past few years. Now they're a 12 seed. Auburn interesting team. They're decent, but I'm not the biggest fan of that team. So give me Grand Canyon to pull off the win. Then BYU, I think, beats UC Irvine. And then as much as I like Colorado State, I'm going to go with Washington. Coming off the first four, there's usually a first four team that wins in March Madness, having that game that they get. I think that Washington can do that there against Colorado State to move on, where they will have a rematch between the Bulldogs of Gonzaga, moving on past Vermont. Ohio State, Mississippi State. Give me Ohio State. They're going to drop this week. And then Creighton, I do think, beats South Dakota State. Down in this region, we do have UConn beating Morehead State. Kansas State, I think, pulls off the 9/8 over Miami. And then Wisconsin, Princeton. Another interesting game. I do think I'm going to just barely give that one to Wisconsin. Just because we did pull off a 12/5 earlier, but could be an upset there. Florida Atlantic, I do think, will beat UNC Greensboro. And then I'm going to go with another 11/6. Give me James Madison to pull off the win over Kentucky. You look at Kentucky, I said it last week, this is a good team. This team could go on a run, but I also think this team has upset potential in the first round, especially going up against a team like James Madison, who I'm a big fan of. So give me James Madison to win there. And then Clemson, I do think will hold off Colgate. Clemson's been a good team there as a 3 seed. San Diego State, Providence. San Diego State just barely escaped against a bad team. Not the biggest fan of that Providence team, but I'm not a big fan of either of those teams. I think San Diego State, they had the good run last year, but I don't think that team's the same. Give me Providence, and then Baylor, I think, will beat Youngstown State. Up here in this region, we do have Purdue beating Norfolk State. I'm going to go with Villanova to beat Iowa State there. Interesting that Indiana is a 12 seed, but I am going to go with Virginia to beat Indiana. Oklahoma versus Liberty. 4 versus a 13. Oklahoma's still undefeated. I really do like Liberty as a team. Let's go with the 13/4 upset. Big believer in that Liberty team. Don't get me wrong. Never mind. I got to give credit where credit's due. Oklahoma's been really solid this year. I'm going to flip that up. Give me Oklahoma. Want to go with that upset, but just not quite. Memphis, I do think, will hold off Dayton in that one. And then North Carolina, I think, beats Hofstra. I'm going to go with the 10-seeded. No, I'm going to go with Texas A&M to beat Utah. And then Houston, I think, beats Portland State. So all chalk in that region. You know what? Why not? We're not going to have that. Let's flip this back up. Let's go with Liberty. Why not? It's a bracketology. Would I do that in the real bracket? Probably not. But why not here? Let's give the upset from the Liberty Flames. You got to have at least one upset in this region, I think. All right, down here, we do have Kansas beating Prairie View. Colorado Ole Miss, 8 versus a 9 seed. I'm going to go with Colorado. I'm going to go with the 12/5. Let's go with the Bulldogs of Drake to beat Alabama. They're really good Drake team. And that just shows you, Drake is on top of the division with a very good Bradley team or the conference, and then Indiana State, who's in the mix in the bubble. So that just shows you how good that conference is. Whoever plays, whoever makes it out of that conference, it's going to be a tough out. Illinois, I do think, beats Akron. Duke versus Cincinnati, I do think I'm going to go with the Blue Devils just barely. And Tennessee, I do think, beats McNeese State. Northwestern versus South Carolina. I'm going to go with Northwestern as a 7 seed, and then Marquette beats Longwood. All right, so for a spot in the Sweet 16, we do have Arizona beating Texas. BYU, I think, will hold off Grand Canyon. We do have the rematch between Gonzaga and Washington. This time, I think Gonzaga would get the better of that one, but that one's a good matchup. Creighton, I do think will beat Ohio State. So I'll chalk in the second round in that region after a wild first round. Then we have UConn versus Kansas State. I am going to go with Connecticut. Wisconsin, Florida Atlantic. Give me Florida Atlantic as the 4 seed. Clemson, James Madison. I'm going to go with the 11 seed, James Madison. We got to have some chaos there. Really like that team. Don't get me wrong, Clemson, also undefeated. They've been playing good basketball. But give me James Madison in the upset. And then Baylor, I do think, will pull off the win over Providence. In this region, we do have Purdue pulling off the win over Villanova. Virginia, I think, will hold off Liberty in there. Memphis versus North Carolina. Really like that Memphis team. Let's do it. Let's go with the 6/3. Memphis there. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that one. Really like that Memphis team. North Carolina is still a very young team there. So give me Memphis. And then Houston, Texas A&M. I am going to go with Houston. Down here, we do have Kansas, Colorado. Give me Kansas. All 1 seeds prevail. Drake, Illinois. It's a really good Drake team. I don't think they'll be Illinois, though. That's a good team there. Give me Illinois. And then Duke, I think, pulls off the 6/3 upset. At this point, I think Duke would be favored. Rematch of that 5-4 last week. I'm just not a fan of Tennessee. I'm just going to be honest with a lot of you guys. Give me Duke. And then finishing it off, Marquette, I think, beats Northwestern. Okay. For a spot in the Elite Eight, we do have Arizona beating BYU. Gonzaga, Creighton, 2-3 seed. Give me Creighton in that game. UConn, Florida Atlantic. Give me Connecticut. And then Baylor, I think, falls to 11 seed James Madison. Giving my boys a run again in this bracketology. Love that James Madison team. Give me them to move on. Purdue, Virginia. I'm going to go with the 4-seeded Virginia. Really like that team. Last year wasn't a fan of them, but this year kind of changing. I like that program. So give me Virginia to win against Purdue. Memphis, Houston. Battle of 2 former AAC teams. I am going to have to go with Houston in that one to move on. All right, Kansas, Illinois. I am going to go with Kansas, the 1 seed. And then Marquette, Duke. I'm going to go with Marquette. So we have another 1-2 seed matchup there. All right, for a spot in the Final Four, Arizona, Creighton. Really good matchup between 2 really good teams, but I am going to go with Arizona to move on. UConn, James Madison. As much as I want to move James Madison on, I am going to have to go with Connecticut there. And then we do have Virginia versus Houston, 4-2 seed. I am going to have to go with Houston. So a lot of chalk here. Kansas, Marquette, 1 seed, 2 seed. I do think I have to give Kansas some credit. So we're going to have 3 number 1 seeds in this Final Four and 1 2 seed. Just how this bracket played out this time. A little bit more chalky this time around, but that leaves some good matchups in the Final Four. We have Arizona, UConn, the former champions, Huskies. I do think falls to Arizona in that matchup. And then we have Houston, Kansas. Let's give the Jayhawks the win there as the 1 seed. So we have a battle between 2 number 1 seeds, Arizona, Kansas. I'm going to go with the Jayhawks this time around. Gave Arizona some love last week. Let's give the Jayhawks some love this week. They're a really good team, championship caliber team as well. So give me Kansas. All right, anyway, guys, thank you all for watching this video today. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed the content. Comment down below your predictions. Anyway, guys, peace out.